Benjamin Isitt. You teach at
University of BC.
UBC, not UBIC.
I was doing a postdoc at UVic,
Okay.
and I just finished in July. I switched to UBC.
Okay. You ran for office here a few years ago
Yes.
for the position of mayor. And there is a by-election in November
Yes.
for city council. Are you going to run?
No, because of this position at UBC.
Oh, okay.
Council
Okay.
meetings are on Thursdays, and that's one of my fullest days of teaching. So this
Okay.
election I'll give it a pass.
You'll be teaching political science?
History.
History.
Yeah. History of social movements in Canada
Okay.
and globally.
Is that part of political science department, or is it separate?
History.
It's the history department.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I
is
teach
that-
political history though. Yes.
All right. This is a polling system,
Yes.
and it's non-partisan,
Mm-hmm.
it's non-profit,
Right.
and it basically enables people to participate,
Right.
similar to the legislation that the province brought a few years ago about initiative and recall.
Right.
But they never developed a facility for people to go and participate.
Right.
And what we are promoting is that this could be in public libraries, not necessarily this poll,
Right.
but one run by the federal, the provincial elections office,
Right.
and they could have it on every public library, and everyone with a little card, library card, identification, maybe a password, can open a file where you can put your vote on issues and on politicians.
Okay.
So that would be called a perpetual electoral system,
Mm.
because you wouldn't need to wait 3 years or 5 years or 4 years to elect somebody or
Right.
to make a decision when the referendum comes around.
Mm.
But it would be something that is permanently on a database, computer database, where you can go and say, this is my position.
Right.
So we're upgrading this all the time and changing, and new topics come that didn't exist 2 years ago, and the opinions are reset every few years to make sure that people didn't move away or died, and then the poll becomes irrelevant.
Right.
So we have a list of categories, which is global issues, with a whole bunch of subtopics, and we have federal polls with a bunch of subtopics, and you can click on any one of them if you want to go to the poll. And then we have the provincial. The provincial. If you click on the provincial, here's the list of all the subtopics.
Yeah.
But if you click here, it becomes a little easier to handle. The same list appears here, which is a link to the poll.
Yeah.
Right? So you have electoral issues, you have constitutional law, governance, law enforcement, financial, healthcare, education, housing management, social transfers, transportation and communications, natural resources, business and labor regulation, trade and marketing. Now, this is just something that I have come across as important to provincial issues. This is not the written on stone.
Right.
I'm missing probably half of the topics that should be there, but it's a way of starting something. The idea is that when we give too much power to a few, power tends to corrupt. And that's the idea, that if we go and every 3 or 4 years we give all the power to a few politicians, then they become vulnerable to persuasion from corporate power, and then they legislate in benefit of businesses and people that have sponsored their campaign, rather than in benefit of the people.
Yes.
Now, if we were to switch that around and say legislators don't have the power to legislate other than what the referendum has approved, as a direct democracy, people would have the right to go to a public library and put their opinions on all the issues. We could theoretically put all the issues that the parliament is discussing, or the MLAs are discussing, and municipalities are discussing. We could have separate files where you go and you say, okay, I want to discuss about the bridge, the blue bridge. You click on the blue bridge and you see your options and you participate. Then the city hall wouldn't have to have much of a discussion other than say, this is what people want. that would be direct democracy.
Yes.
Which no country really has. Right. Switzerland has something similar, and the fact that they have a lot more referendums than we do here. But it's not something permanently implemented through a computerized system.
Right.
So this would be a pioneering development of democracy. Because a lot of people have this fear, say, well, where does it exist? Who's doing it? And my answer usually is, doesn't have to exist. We can pioneer something because it makes sense. If it makes sense for us, why shouldn't we make it? Right. So now going back to the questions here, I have just tentatively put some polls there, and when we go to say electoral issues, okay, in electoral issues we have term of office, okay. Now if we had this perpetual electoral system, then the term of office wouldn't be an issue, because you would say the computerized system will tell you who is on top, right, who has the most votes. So in term of office, and usually most people say no term of office, voters' right to perpetual elections. Okay. And when you click here on this link, then it takes you to an explanation of exactly what perpetual elections is, right, on another website, because the nowpolling.ca is not advocating for anything, right, but so we cannot have here promotion of any of these choices. Now there's all kinds of other choices, and whenever a choice gets the most votes, automatically it shifts to the top. Oh yes. So it's not that this perpetual election is on top and therefore receives the most votes. It's on top because more people have voted. Yes. But when people from the wise democracy would come and vote for this would automatically become the first choice. So anyway, going back, what do you think about this?
Oh, it sounds like a great idea. Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Aha.
Mr. John Luton, you've been a city councillor here in Victoria since when?
Since, well, for a year and a half.
What's one of those issues that were more prominent?
Well, it's always, over the last decade or so, been on cycling and more recently on walking issues.
One of the issues that concern me is the safety of bicycles on the streets. And when I come on Yates, I see this nice bicycle path exclusively for bicycles, and I feel like it's safe for me. It's my space, so no cars are going to come and knock me over. I see the same possibilities in other streets. What would it take for the city hall to put the same kind of bicycle paths exclusively for bicycles on many others?
Well, the simple answer is just more money. Because you know, every bicycle lane or a path like the Galloping Goose or any other special facilities that have a cost to them, not just in the paint you see on the road, but in the planning and the design and the analysis. And then each project has a particular cost, and you've got an annual budget for bicycle facilities, which is a couple of $100,000. And when you run out of that, then you've got to wait till the next year to start on the next project. So, some of those places that you've mentioned, change is coming. They're coming, but, they all cost money.
Now, considering the relation between the expense on bicycle paths and the expense on highways and roads, it's quite a high difference, eh? You say 200,000
a year
for bicycle, and what is the budget for roads?
Well, it's not quite as easy to separate out what is for roads, because the roads are already built. So often what you're doing is you'd have to go and look and say, what's the sweeping budget, what's the budget for potholes fixing, what's the budget for repaving. So I couldn't tell you offhand. In terms of what's new, the bicycle budget is richer than the road budget because we don't build new roads.
I saw this presentation where you were one of the participants recently, and one of the statistics was a comparison of something like $80 million for road construction.
3,800,000. That would be the cycling infrastructure funding from the province of BC versus what they're planning to spend on road capital works in 2011. The number of the capital projects goes down a bit in subsequent years, but it is a very imbalanced system.
Is there a political decision here that comes and say, well, can we shift some of these millions of dollars from roads and to bicycles?
Yes, and you know, unfortunately, part of that decision has to come at the provincial level because a lot of the bigger capital projects are often provincially funded.
What is your view on this disparity between spending so much money and cars and not
enough on bikes?
Bicycles?
Well, I'm always pushing to get more money spent on bicycle facilities, or simply to reallocate the assets we've got to make them more supportive of changing the dynamic of our transportation system to support cycling and walking.
So you think the changes are coming, but they're just going to take a little longer?
Well, if you go out in the city, you can see the change that is happening all over the place.
Bicycle paths, and says all narrow streets like Luton sign as bicycle paths should be restricted to one way only for cars and clearly mark two-way bicycle lanes.
Yeah, I don't know. One-way streets have their own problems. They're less pedestrian friendly, and
why would that be?
I don't know. I'm not a transportation planner, but there's a lot of studies. A lot of cities are removing their one-way streets. So I don't know if that would specifically be it. You could bring in a very slow speed limit, and that cars would have to pass each other. If it was, let's say, 10 kilometers an hour. For residents, then you could still go both ways, but it would just prioritize the cars.
You ride a bicycle, and I feel so confident when I'm on that bicycle path.
Yes.
Because I figure
I agree with bicycle paths.
And it's only a one-way street.
But see, I think there's enough room. I don't think you'd have to switch to one way. You could eliminate parking on one side of the street.
Okay.
You could narrow it.
Would residents probably be opposing that? Say you're taking the parking away.
You could. There's a lot of solutions though.
And instead of one way,
you could take one sidewalk and combine it with the parking.
That would be a lot more expensive. Taking a sidewalk, whereas just painting lanes on an existing road would be a lot easier to achieve.
Yeah, I just don't like the one-way idea, especially in residential neighborhoods.
3 options now on the bicycle paths in Victoria. The first on top is all narrow streets like Hamilton, etc. should be one-way street. The second option says no, I prefer 2 ways because I need to drive in both directions. The third option, as introduced today by Benjamin Isitt, is more dedicated bike greenways throughout the city.